Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 29th of July, 2021. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So, I've been talking about the StatefulWorks EIP1559 NFTs for a while now, and they kind of put out a wrap-up kind of post today on Twitter, saying that they had raised 278 ETH worth $635,000 for the ETH2 contributors, and this has been trustlessly split between them. Now, I discussed this the other day, how on the Mirror platform, everyone that kind of like bought an NFT, this ETH went into a pool, basically a smart contract, where all the people that were selected to be part of that split could essentially claim their portion of those funds. So this can be done totally trustlessly, which I think is really, really cool. But basically, yeah, this is just really awesome to see that the kind of like contributors here got funded, and that's a decent chunk of change there as well for something that was basically, I mean, it wasn't like required. You didn't have to do this. EIP 1559 was still happening, but this was just a way for someone to get like an NFT, which obviously I've got displayed behind me, but like get an NFT for support and support like the 1559 contributors at the same time. So really, really cool to see that amount was raised, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming from StatefulWorks. I saw them kind of like teasing a merge one coming up, so obviously it's going to be the same deal, but just in the theme of the merge. And of course I'm going to mint one, and I think that's just going to be really exciting. So I'm just really loving what StatefulWorks is doing by kind of like, I guess, turning Ethereum culture into NFTs, and then kind of like selling them off and donating proceeds, or at least giving the proceeds to the contributors and to the Ethereum core developers and stuff like that. So really, really awesome to see all that. So I put out this tweet today where I said, and I quote, "I remember how people thought that the minimum required ETH amount of 524,000 ETH to kickstart the beacon chain wouldn't be hit. And then we did hit it, and we hit it like, I guess what ended up happening was like a few days before, or a couple of days before, it started accelerating the ETH that was going into the deposit contract. And then we ended up hitting it a few hours before, because there was a lot of ETH that came in, and now the total staked ETH amount is at 6.6 million. And then I said, yeah, don't bet against Ethereum. And this is this is something that's people that I guess like people who haven't been involved with Ethereum, or at least have been like skeptical of Ethereum, have done ever since Ethereum's inception. They've always betted against Ethereum, and Ethereum has always proven them wrong. They bet against Ethereum with DeFi, and DeFi proved them wrong. Like back when DeFi was just emerging, and like that kind of like term came to prominence, there were so many people saying that this would never work for X, Y, and Z reason, and they were completely wrong, right? Like, and there were people saying that Uniswap would never work, and Uniswap is the breakout app. I mean, AMMs in general are the breakout app of DeFi. So there was a lot of that going on. A ton of people said that proof of stake in general wouldn't work, and here we are. A lot of people are now saying, oh, the merge is too complicated, it's going to break. I mean, we've already got test nets that the merge is happening on, and there's another thing related to the merge I'm going to talk about in a sec as well. But we know that it's technically feasible. We know that it's going to be all well and good. More people are saying, sharding's never going to work. Well, we know sharding is going to work. We already kind of like have I think we definitely have test nets for it, like early test nets for it, and dev nets and stuff like that. We know it's going to work. People saying layer 2 is not going to work. Basically everything within Ethereum that's like new or innovative or novel or whatever, people have said it isn't going to work, and then we prove them wrong. So I think that it's just like really funny whenever I see someone saying that this isn't going to work. On the flip side of things, I think to myself, well, okay, if enough people are saying it's not going to work, and it's got to do with Ethereum, then there's a high chance it will work, because it's just been the pattern over and over and over again. Now, I mean, I can't even think of anything that people said wouldn't work that hasn't worked. I mean, maybe people were saying like specific technical details of things like, say, execution sharding versus data sharding. Execution sharding does work, and would work, but people were saying like it was unnecessary. And it didn't need to be done because of the and it wasn't actually something that was desirable because of the fact that cross-shard communication would take a very long time, 6 to 12 minutes, and it would be hard to kind of like do communication like that. So I think from that perspective, like people like that that dived into the technical details, they were right in that sense. But a lot of the people who kind of like hated on these sorts of stuff, they never dived into the technical details. They were just hating on like the surface level stuff. And, people kept saying, Ethereum keeps changing its narrative. ETH keeps changing its narrative. It used to be the world computer. Now it's, this kind of like DeFi thing. And then they said, oh, now there's DAOs and NFTs. And at the end of the day, Ethereum is a lot of different things because that's just the platform. I mean, it's an expressive, fully permissionless blockchain. So of course it's going to attract more than one use case. It's not like Bitcoin where the only use case Bitcoin has is BTC. I mean, by design, like you can't do anything else on Bitcoin. Whereas with Ethereum, if the only use case Ethereum had was say DeFi, well then we would have a very unimaginative developer ecosystem because because of the fact that you can do anything and build anything you want. And if you only build one thing, well, I mean, that would mean that people were just not interested in building other things. Not that they couldn't, they just weren't interested in it. Luckily, we have like a diverse set of developers within Ethereum that are interested in building all sorts of different applications from all sorts of different categories and verticals. So I'm really happy about that. And yeah, on the merge, EIP 3675, which is the upgrade consensus to proof of stake EIP that I talked about the other day, I think on last week's refuel, that has been merged, which means it's basically in draft stage, will be considered. It'll be considered as part of the standards track with the EIP process, and it will go and progress through kind of like the EIP process from here. Being merged is a big part of the EIP process because it means that it's basically, for lack of a better term, being taken seriously, right? And part of like the core EIPs that are being considered for inclusion in like an upgrade that comes eventually. And obviously we're expecting the merge to come in Q1 2020. And I spoke about how EIP 3675 was basically something that described what that merge is going to look like. And essentially what it means is upgrading the consensus to proof of stake. Essentially, really, I mean, at the end of the day, all we're doing is removing proof of work and putting in proof of stake. We're not changing anything on the execution layer, as in like the current ETH1 chain we know today, besides the consensus engine. Like the EVM's not changing, smart contracts in general aren't changing. All the kind of like things that they're feeding to that, they aren't changing with this. All that's changing is proof of work and proof of stake. And I believe we're also going to be removing the difficulty bomb as part of this, which has been in Ethereum since inception. And for those who don't know what the difficulty bomb is, it's basically a mechanism that's put in place to force upgrades. And originally, I'm pretty sure it was put in place, or at least the original thinking around it, was that it was only put in place to force the upgrades to to proof of stake, essentially. And then once we got to proof of stake, we would remove it. So I'm expecting the difficulty bomb to definitely be removed as part of this. But yeah, this is making good progress. I mean, there wasn't any blockers that I saw on the EIP itself. There were a few corrections that were made and stuff like that for accuracy. I mean, you can go to the EIP yourself and see exactly what the changes were. If it loads up on GitHub here, you can see that there were a bunch of like discussions about it with a bunch of different people going through it. Micah had like a bunch of different kind of discussions with Mikhail here, the original proposer, and then you can just scroll down to the bottom and you can see, okay, well, it got merged, a few hours ago, and it's all good. And even Micah said, like, there's nothing blocking this from being merged. This is just like, he said, yeah, left some comments that I recommend reviewing, but nothing blocking this from merging as a draft. So yeah, it's making progress. We are getting closer and closer to the merge. It is going to be the biggest thing that's ever happened in Ethereum, I believe. We've had some big things before, and obviously we have 1559 going live next week, which is another big thing. But in terms of like sheer, I guess like impact, the merge to proof of stake will be the biggest thing, biggest impact that will ever happen with Ethereum. And then after that, we obviously have, later on we're going to have sharding and things like that coming into it. But I do think that the merge is just like been something that's been worked on for so long. I mean, it wasn't originally called the merge, mind you. Originally proof of stake was going to just be an upgrade for the current chain that we have today, but we obviously split the chains up and re-architected a few things for various different reasons, one of those being safety. But yeah, I mean, this has been a super long time coming. I mean, if you think that we've waited a long time for 1559, which is 2 years, Ethereum has been waiting for proof of stake since 2014, since Thales first described Ethereum. I think even late 2013, when he first published the white paper, proof of stake was mentioned in that, I think from memory, or at least he was talking about it at the time, him being Vitalik. So it's been a long time coming. It'll be 8 years by the time it kind of like gets implemented, if we meet that Q1 target next year. So I don't think there's going to be anything else that takes 8 years. Maybe snarkifying the entire Ethereum chain, which is probably 5 to 10 years out from now, and it's more of a kind of like nice to have than a critical upgrade or anything like that. But that might be just as big, if not bigger, depending on the implementation and depending on kind of like what improvements we can get out of that. Because from my understanding, snarkifying the base layer leads to improvements in privacy and scalability at the same time. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. But still, Super exciting to see this making progress. I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't. I'm pretty sure like after the LTIR upgrade goes through on ETH2, and after London goes through and everything, the ETH1 and ETH2 devs and researchers are pretty much going to be like mostly focused on the merge. Like pretty much like 80-90% of their attention is going to be on the merge. There are, of course, other upgrades coming either before, like there might be one before the merge. If not, it will be after the merge. But there's obviously much more things happening than just the merge here. But you can expect most of the core developer and core researcher attention to be on this EIP and the merge in general, and any other EIPs that go along with the merge sooner rather than later. So this is awesome. I'm really excited for this, as I'm sure a lot of you are. But yeah, this is definitely the one I'm looking forward to. I'm actually looking forward to this more than 1559, if I'm being honest, because I really, 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 really want Ethereum to get off proof of work for numerous reasons. And as much as I love 1559 and all the benefits that it's bringing, I think just in the grand scheme of things, getting off proof of work is going to have more impact than 1559 will. So I spoke about this yesterday, StarkWare's dAMM or dAMM, and today they basically introduced it and announced that they're partnering up with Loopring, and I think they're partnering up with Diversify as well, because Diversify is built on StarkWare's tech. But essentially what the dAMM is it's a cross L2 AMM that shares liquidity across layers, and it's not just layer 2, it's layer 1 as well. And I went through this on yesterday's refuel a little bit, but essentially what this dAMM enables is ZK-based L2s, such as Diversify and Loopring, and there's other ones out there like ZK Sync and stuff like that, to asynchronously share liquidity. So this isn't like so asynchronous basically means that you'd have to wait for it to happen. It doesn't happen at like the same time. You can think of like a synchronous communication within blockchains to be something happening within the same block. So like a flash loan or something in the same block. Whereas asynchronous means that you may have to wait like a couple of blocks for something to happen, but it still happens, right? And this is how most of the web works in general. Like most of Web 2 is that asynchronous communication. It's not something that devs aren't used to, and it's actually pretty standard across basically all of technology. Asynchronous is at the heart of things, because doing synchronous communication has a lot of overhead. It is not possible a lot of the time because of either hardware or software limitations. So asynchronous communication is used everywhere, and that's exactly what StarkWare is doing with this. Essentially, what dAMM AMM enables as well is LPs to serve L1 AMM such as Uniswap while partaking in L2 trading. Now, I think I went over this on the refuel a few weeks ago as well, about how I was pointing out how this is solving the fragmented liquidity problem. It's just one way it's solving it. Obviously, there are bridges like Connext and Hot Protocol and all those things I've discussed many times before. And this was known as Caspian at the time, so it wasn't known as dAMM. And I actually think this is a better name, like dAMM. Caspian for me was too close to Casper, which reminded me of Proof of Stake. For those who don't know, Proof of Stake's finality gadget is called Casper, the friendly finality gadget. So that's not a term that I see used much anymore, but still, it reminded me of Casper. But yeah, they presented that in March 2021, and I spoke about it on the refuel then. But this is like the official release of it now, which is really cool. So you can read the full blog post here for a description about how it works and kind of like the details and everything like that. And they've got a few nice images in here that describe it in a better way than I can in words. But yeah, I'm really excited to see more of these solutions coming online, simply because, as I've said plenty of times, like the fragmentation of liquidity, not just with layer 1, but with different layer 2s and side chains and all that sort of stuff, is going to happen inevitably. Like, it's not something that we can control. Not everything is going to be able to live on one layer, whether that be a layer 1 or a layer 2 or a side chain or whatever you want to call it. We're going to have many multiples of this. I mean, I was talking to one of my friends at Polygon yesterday. We're having like just our regular meeting, and I was talking to him about this, and basically we were going over like Polygon's kind of strategy, and how Polygon being like a Swiss Army knife for scalability, not just focusing on just layer 2s or just side chains or just app chains, whatever you want to call them. Polygon is building like the entire suite of these solutions, is simply because we're going to live in this kind of world where one solution will make more sense than another one. There are some projects that don't want to build on layer 2. They want to build their own app chain, for example, and we've already seen this. Compound wants to build their own chain, and they are building it called the Comp chain, right? And there's a bunch of other projects that I've seen before doing this as well. And layer 2s generally at this point in time at least, are not at the point where they can basically scale things like crypto gaming. So a lot of that stuff will happen on side chains or kind of like these, I guess, purpose-built app chains for these kind of use cases. So the tools that solve that fragmented liquidity and fragmented user base are going to be in high demand. So I'm glad to see StarkWare jumping into the fray here and offering a solution for both developers and users to this problem that we're going to be facing. And this is what Ethereum does, right? This is what the Ethereum community does. We see a problem, we don't bemoan it and say, okay, well, this is never going to get fixed. We come up with solutions for it. And I guess like it's one of my bull theses for Ethereum is basically, yes, Ethereum has many issues that we need to work out, but I'm betting that the ecosystem can work them out in a timely manner and in a good way as well. So Nader from Edge and Node put together a really great thread here today, called, basically on crypto hiring. So essentially, in this thread, he describes that there's been an enormous amount of growth and funding over the past few months, and an explosion in new jobs in crypto. And I've been going on about this on the Refuel pretty much like every episode, or maybe not every episode, but like pretty regularly. That there are so many jobs in crypto right now because like there's so much money that's been gone into these teams, and they're hiring like crazy. But in this thread, Nader basically goes through all of the, not all of them, but like 35 teams that are currently hiring across a wide range of things. So you can see here Open Zeppelin and The Graph, and then you've got like the Chainlink, Uniswap Compound, Live PR, Showtime, Consensus. I mean, these are all like from different verticals, different categories, different kind of things to do, not just within DeFi. I mean, he included Binance here and stuff like that. Web3, NFTs, all that sort of stuff here. And, you can go check this thread out for yourself and see all these open roles. But I've been, plugging cryptocurrency jobs a lot on the Refuel. And we have an AMA with Daniel from Cryptocurrency Jobs this Saturday in the Discord channel. So go head there for details on that in the announcements channel there. But if I had to say that there was no better time to get a job in crypto than there is right now. I remember trying to find a job in, I think it was like early to mid 2019. I was like, I really want a job in crypto and I really want to work in DeFi. Now, back then, DeFi was so tiny. There was hardly anyone hiring. The teams that did get funded were only funded with small seed rounds. They were very small seed rounds. They had like only a few months of runway. But like I really wanted to join one, and I ended up joining Set, of course, which I mean was one of the best jobs I've ever had, if not probably the best job I've ever had. I haven't had that many jobs, but essentially it was much harder to find a job back then. These days, I mean, it's so easy, like so easy. And just going through Nader's thread here or going on cryptocurrency jobs, it's just so easy to find a role, and it doesn't have to be like a developer role. It can be marketing, business development, community management, design, front end stuff, whatever you want to do, there is a role for you. And I highly suggest, partaking in the AMA on Saturday if you've got questions for Daniel, because he is an expert at this stuff. He knows what he's talking about. I mean, I talk to him all the time. He's a genius when it comes to this stuff, and he's helped a lot of people get jobs before. So definitely answer questions in there. But other than that, definitely just keep checking. Keep checking. If you don't see a role that, appeals to you, if there's a specific team you want to work for, but they don't have an opening just yet, I mean, it just depends how broad you want to be. If you say, okay, I don't care what team I work for, I just want to work in crypto, well, you could find a job like today. Like it wouldn't even be hard for you to do that. But if you're looking for like a specific industry, like if it's a specific kind of like a vertical such as DeFi, then you got to look in DeFi, which I think DeFi is actually probably easier to find a job for, and maybe NFTs are probably even easier. But if you want to work in DAOs, like DAO specific things, there are roles out there, but it's probably harder than those other two verticals. And it just depends like how niche you want to go. Like I know saying DeFi was niche back in 2019. If you went around then, it's like, pretty hilarious, because these days DeFi is like the main thing of crypto, along with NFTs. But I mean, NFTs were even more niche than DeFi like a year ago. Before we kind of had that NFT renaissance essentially. But yeah, it just depends on like kind of what company you want to work for, what vertical you want to work in, and what role as well. So you have to narrow all that down, which the Cryptocurrency Jobs website allows you to do as well. So I recommend going and checking that out. But check out Nader's thread here and join the AMA on Saturday if you can. I think it'd be really valuable. If you can't make it for whatever reason, that's fine. I'll have a transcript of it available. I'll post that somewhere. And also you can ask your question in the Crypto Jobs AMA channel that's in the Discord channel prior to the AMA happening, and I'll just ask it for you on the day to Daniel, and he can answer it for you. So there's plenty of ways to get involved there. But if you're still working a non-crypto job, definitely look at this thread and go to cryptocurrency jobs. But also, one other thing I should bring up is that a lot of these companies are also hiring remotely too. Like, one major issue for me in 2019 was not only trying to find a job in DeFi, it was also trying to find, so there was actually three issues. I wanted to find a job in DeFi, which was extremely niche. I didn't know which role I wanted to go for, because I didn't really have any experience with much things. I wasn't a dev, didn't do business development, I didn't do marketing, but I actually ended up landing a marketing role with Set because of all my community stuff that I'd been doing just generally with the Ethereum community, with ETHUB and stuff like that. And I kind of learned stuff on the job. And then thirdly, I'm in Australia. Well, I'm still in Australia. And a lot of there weren't many teams in Australia at all centered around DeFi. I think there was only really synthetics back then. And I don't think they were hiring at the time. And then the time zone difference was a big deal there, and I had to work remotely. But these days, every company is pretty much offering remote work, and you can work from anywhere in the world that you want, and they actually prefer it, and they'll pay you in crypto or whatever, like whether it be USDC or ETH or their native token. They're so flexible, and as I said, like, all these things have been funded recently. They have a lot of money, and the salaries are very good as well, even for like the entry level position. So yeah, I mean, one of the main reasons I do a lot of this kind of stuff with the refuel and educating in general is because I want to convince a lot of people to work in this industry. That's like one of my personal goals, is because I don't think there's only a handful of industries in the world that are as impactful as crypto. I believe obviously the space industry is very impactful. Some of the bleeding edge medical research stuff is obviously impactful. But in terms of like, excitement, having agency over your work, and seeing, maybe not quick results, but seeing real impact happening in like real time, and being part of like the fastest growing industry on earth, or at least one of, if not the fastest growing industries on earth, then yeah, you can't go past crypto for that. So definitely, keep your mind open, and don't feel too scared about jumping in. I think, like, just based on my own personal experience, I think these days is much easier. So you can definitely find something easier than I had. I was doing back in 2019. That's for sure. So Shyam Sridhar, I think that's how you say your name. Sorry if I got that wrong. Put out this blog post today titled "Measuring Decentralization in Proof of Stake Ethereum." So Vitalik worked on this basically with Shyam here, and Barnaby as well. I mean, obviously two Ethereum Foundation researchers. But essentially, this is I wouldn't call it technical, but it is kind of like pretty dense with a bunch of code in it. That you don't need to run the code yourself. It basically describes what the code is doing in the blog post. But essentially, this does exactly what the title's saying. It's basically trying to quantify decentralization in proof of stake Ethereum. Now, I read through this post today. It is really, really good. It takes a look at kind of things like staking service providers, exchanges, stuff like that, and kind of measures them all against each other. You can see here that Kraken accounts for 14.5% of the network. Kraken has so much ETH. It's insane. Like, I don't even know why. Like, they're not even one of the biggest exchanges, right? Like, you would expect Coinbase or Binance to be bigger than Kraken, but they aren't. I mean, you can see here Binance is 5.7% of the network. Lido is, I think Lido is even bigger than Coinbase. I don't think Coinbase is on here, but I've seen a graphic of Coinbase, and they're around 4 or 5%. Or something like that. And then they go on to measuring kind of like wealth inequality and the Gini coefficient. Vitalik actually put out a blog post about the Gini coefficient as well today, which you should go check out after reading this. Then they dive into kind of like some more mathematical analysis here of kind of trying to come to terms with the decentralization and the percentage of proposed blocks and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm not going to do this piece justice by kind of like just giving you a summary of it. I highly suggest giving it a read yourself if you're interested in this sort of stuff. Obviously, centralization of stake has been an issue within proof of stake Ethereum for quite a while now, and I think there's a lot of people working on this problem. There's a lot of different teams tackling it in different ways. Like Lido is obviously tackling it in a different way than something like Rocket Pool, and then you have other services out there that are targeting more enterprise stuff. And we obviously have the client diversity stuff that we're trying to improve and trying to get as many people to use other clients other than Prism as possible. So there's a lot of this stuff going on, and I personally find it really interesting, and I hope you do as well. So if you do, you can go read this blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description for you to check out. So Thales, one of the projects that spun out of the Synthetics ecosystem that is building binary options, announced today that their dApp is now live on the Ethereum mainnet. So you can go to thales.market/markets to check it all out and kind of like play around with it if you'd like. There's no airdrop just yet. As I've mentioned before on the Refuel, all Synthetics stakers, past and present, will be getting an airdrop of Thales native token. But essentially, you can go read their full announcement blog post here to get an idea of what they're all about and kind of like where they came from. As I said, they spun out of Synthetics, what Thales allows you to do, binary options, what they are, all that sort of stuff going on. And of course, you can play around with it here as well. So yeah, definitely a big congrats to Thales on this launch. This is the second project. Second project that's live today, because there was 3 projects: Lyra, Thales, and Quenta. Quenta is live, Thales is live, Lyra is in testnet on Optimism, so they're on layer 2. They're not going to launch on layer 1, but they should be live on mainnet soon. And obviously Synthetics is going to be is on Optimism and is going live at their Synthetics exchange there soon. So the Synthetics ecosystem really is bustling. I mean, all these apps are going to be on Optimism, of course, I believe, right? And they're all going to be able to talk to each other, which is really, really cool. And they're going to be able to essentially kind of like share liquidity, and it's going to make the Synthetics ecosystem something to be reckoned with. And speaking of things at the beginning of the Refuel, when I was talking about things that people bet against, Synthetics is one of the projects that a lot of people have bet against over the years, and they just keep like building. They just keep kind of like, outside of the SNX price going up, they've just kept building like crazy, and now they're making, I think, the right approach of spinning out certain things, making their own projects, but also feeding it all the value back into Synthetics by using the Synthetics kind of ecosystem and getting SNX stakers to be community members for each of these apps. So through the airdrop, which I think is really important. So yeah, really, really cool to see that. And go test out or try out Thales if you haven't already. So David Silverman, one of the Index Coop community members here, or contributors, I should say here, shared basically a governance post where Polygon is trying to create a Polygon 10 index, or at least someone from the Polygon community wants to create a Polygon 10 index here. And you can see here the authors from the Polygon Foundation, sorry, I shouldn't say community here. And basically they want to create an index that has a bunch of Polygon specific projects, tokens in it. So you can see QuickSwap, DFYN here, or Diffin, I think that's how you say it. Aavegotchi, which has actually been getting a lot of prominence lately. And then all from different categories too, like DEXs, DeFi, NFT, sports, metaverse, payments. So yeah, what I like the most about the Index Coop is the fact that anyone can come along, propose their own index, and then if they get it through the governance process and the community discussion process, it'll go live as part of the Index Coop umbrella. Now, we've seen this already play out with something like the Bankless Bed Index. We saw it play out with DeFi Pulse's various products. And I think that we're just going to get more and more of these, what they call methodologists, coming on board and suggesting different kind of indexes for all different kinds of things. So really cool to see this. Disclosure, I'm an advisor to Polygon, just want to put that out there. Again, for those who don't know, but I still think this is really cool. And I should say I'm an advisor to Set as well, which is big part of the Index Coop, and I hold index tokens. It's funny. These disclosures, I know they're annoying, and I'm probably going to stop doing them soon because of the fact that I'm going to have a website with all of this on there. I've been building my own website. It's just a very basic thing where I'm just going to have disclosures of everything because I feel like a broken record every time I have to mention that I'm advising or investing in a project because I'm involved with so many different projects. So I know it's annoying. So I'm going to have just a home for that so I don't have to do it in every episode. But still, anyway, besides that, definitely go check this out. Read the whole kind of post here to see kind of like what they're doing, what their methodology is, and the discussions around it too. There's already been a bunch of healthy discussion here as well, which is really, really awesome to see. All right, so finally here we have Ethereum 2's fifth client. So fun fact, there used to be 8 clients that were building for ETH2. 4 of them dropped out, and not dropped out, but like 4 of them didn't make it to mainnet when the Beacon chain launched. Obviously, we launched a Beacon chain with Prism, Lighthouse, Teku, and Nimbus, and now with ChainSafe, who was a part of the original 8, they now have their Lodestar client, which is talking to ETH2 mainnet. So we now have 5 mainnet compatible clients, and the other 3 I don't think are going to come to mainnet. Maybe one of them does. I can't remember exactly the names of them. But one was discontinued. It stopped being worked on. It was called Yeeth. And then there was two other ones, and I can't exactly remember what they were. I think Parity might have actually been working on one, maybe, that they kind of stopped working on. But I believe there's one other one that may or may not come to mainnet. But anyway, I mean, we have 5 clients. I think at that, I actually thought 4 was fine, but having 5 is even better. And I was talking before about how client diversity still needs to be improved. I don't see... Like, even though I'm really glad to see Lodestar live here, I don't see it making a dent in client diversity. I think what we need is just like a majority of people to kind of like go to get off Prism in general and just use any of the clients. You can use Lighthouse, the second most popular one, or whatever. It doesn't matter. We just need people to get off using Prism so that we can make sure that the chain isn't just dominated by one client like how ETH1 is today with Geth. But that'll be an evolving process over time. There'll be different kind of initiatives to do that. And of course, if you are running Prism right now, you should definitely consider running one of the other clients. It's not hard to change over. There are guides for it and everything like that. And I highly suggest doing it just to respect and improve the health of the Ethereum 2 network. On that note, I think that's it for today. So thank you everyone again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the newsletter. Join the Discord channel. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.